here's the one thing I will say. Slightly upgrading in the Overwatch League probably means you're staying about same.
So Jmac extends his influence and reach, and he says, Glister, come here, son. And he does.
Where's this hit scan coming in? Or is Naga going to be playing a Tracer against somebody like Sparkle or Striker? That's the concern.
Yeah. Boston could be a middle of the pack team. Yeah. Boston's going to be a rival team for Paris this year, and they got fucking Striker on that team. They're scary. Yep. It is. The Paris Eternal. And their glorious cock logo. Love it. I really do. It's got the I think it's my favorite logo in the Overwatch League because it has the infinity symbol.
Yeah.
It's just a good looking cock, and what they did with the tail at the end was really cool as well. I don't know, it's just a very creative logo. They nailed it. I think branding wise it actually is my favorite logo in the entire league.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
Definitely up there. It's solid overall.
But what their logo does well, unfortunately, their team quality. Now let's actually talk about the team. So Glister, Naga, Dan, Vistolic, Redro, Khan. They bring back five out of how many players they have last season? They bring back 5 players.
Yep.
7.
And Glister comes in as a new. They had 7 last. Yeah, okay, so 5 out of 7. So we lost. Who did we lose? We lost Oni God and
Suna.
Suna. Who? Suna.
Yeah.
Lost Oni God and Suna. And we got Glister. So Jmac extends his influence and reach, and he says, Glister, come here, son. And he does. I think Glister had other offers, did he not? Did he have other opportunities? And he chose Paris, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think he chose Paris. I think he could have gone elsewhere, but he chose Paris. So
should say a lot.
I think I've said before, like, you know, what was the joke I said before? Oh yeah, you know, Glister coming over to Paris, like, you know, Jmac better be on one knee offering him in the ring and no prenup for that marriage. And then Glister's like, all right, baby, I'm coming in. That's a good deal. You know, it better be something like that. Like, but Paris, they're ready. They're all in. They're going to be all in NA, all on the team house finally, not on high ping. I mean, this is all plus bonuses for them.
Yep.
You could say that they have existing synergy to work with. Now, you could also say that, is this a team that you want to have kept together based on last year's result? And that's like a mixed response. Like, it's like yes and no, because they did well last year based on what they had, but it's probably still not a real like super winning roster. But at the same time, that might not be Paris's goal. I think Paris's goal is to have a roster, probably a lower end roster, be as competitive as they can be. And in that regard, they've actually upgraded. So call it a win.
I'd say so. I'd say this is, you know,
this is a pretty good team, Joe.
Without you know, getting a vocabulary lesson or some sort of you know, dictionary thrown at my head. I'll say this. I think the Paris Eternal, you know, competes with the Florida Mayhem for a team that's going to, you know, upset a lot of teams. I think coming into this season, I don't think people are like all that, not prepared. I think that's a little too flowery, but I do think Paris has what it takes to compete. I think they have the flexibility to. They have far fewer questions than many other teams. It just comes down to caliber. I look at Glister. I like what I've seen in the past. If he can bring even an iota of that to the table, then that's fantastic for Paris. I think Naga had a breakout season last year. It's kind of criminal that not enough people are talking about him. I look at the tank line. I think it's fine enough. It removes any kind of like giant glaring questions. Same thing with the supports. I think the support line's probably second, maybe 1A, 1B for like the best lineup that Paris has. Like, I pretty high on Paris. It just comes down to like widening out that scope and do they have enough to compete with everybody else that has leveled up? When it comes to like consistency or like viability across the season as a whole, I see a lot of things that I like. There's fewer questions than a team like Houston, a team like New York, a team like Toronto. You know, there are
At least
fewer
some
questions.
flexibility.
Yes,
At least
100%.
some flexibility.
Yes, caliber. That's where the skill kind of comes in, and it's
And
debatable.
we'll get to caliber in a second. Yiska,
Yes.
your first impression.
Again, like, I gotta say, like, if you're in a position where you can only, like, you gotta sign 6 players, if you gotta double up, then I like the solution to do it on the tank position. I think, yeah, generally, here's the one thing I will say. Slightly upgrading in the Overwatch League probably means you're staying about same. Right? Because everyone, like, the tide is constantly moving up. Like, no team really got worse. Everyone got better. Right?
Well, can you stay the same if but they're only doing a marginal increase. Other teams are doing more than marginal increases.
Yeah.
You just look at Vancouver. So can you stay the same when you
maybe
have Vancouver coming up?
Yeah, maybe they
For
are
example,
relatively, maybe slightly weaker, but I mean, we'll see how this develops over the season. I think they're once again in a similar position. I would think they are once again, like, probably going to be in the same position of, like, striking upwards, turning some heads with some upset victories, but probably around the 0.5 win rate mark, right? I don't think
that'd be a W for them.
Yeah,
that'd be good news for them.
I don't think there's ever a situation where they are once again, or like, in contention for the lowest spots based on what we've seen last year. I think I trust Jmac to be very strong strategically coming into the next year, and therefore, like, giving them a kind of, like, a sufficient, strategical baseline in order to function. I hope Glister, like, this is the one question mark based on the language, but then again, like, Glister seems to be able to integrate well. I hope he gets to perform and gets to be, like, this type of player that actually has hard carry performances. I think Naga is a fine flex DPS. And then Khan, I mean, really strong frag support, right? Like, overall, this is just a good team. But yeah, I don't know. I think if I can choose, I kind of want at least one more DPS player on this team.
That's fair.
I'm debating whether I'd want one more DPS or one more support. Maybe DPS as well, just because of DPS being more of a role that demands flexibility than other roles in the past. But we'll get to the specifics in a second. My first impression is that I think they've done a very minor upgrade, which I hope turns out well. I actually can't remember if Glister played a lot of Tracer. I can't remember if Glister has one of the better Tracers or not, because that could be a downgrade, because only God did have a pretty good Tracer, actually. And if Glister doesn't bring that to the table, that might be an issue. So let's talk about the DPS. Actually, do I have any final thoughts on that? My first impression. I think the first impression is that I don't think this team moves too far from where they were last year. Needle-wise, I think it's very similar to their last year's placement, with maybe some difficulties. And unfortunately, I think if there's any direction they move in, it might be slightly lower than last year. Unless they overperform again. But then again, last year's overperformance, I think, had a lot to do with strength of schedule, which is kind of out of the question this year, because everyone has the same strength of schedule. Now, not in terms of direct qualification for certain events, but in terms of your overall 24 games, right? 24 games in North America. You play each team twice. You will not have a situation where you just get to bully the quote-unquote bottom teams. And also, the bottom teams, quote-unquote, this year are not just bottom feeder teams that are going to go winless. Like, London and Vancouver are going to take games. They're going to be competitive teams at a minimum. They're going to be look, they could even still come 12th and 13th, but they will be teams that will challenge you. They're not just going to roll over. So Paris is not going to get any of those easy games, quote unquote, to just farm for free Ws to get that 0.5 record, right? That 0.5, I mean, I think that would be an achievement for them if they reach that 0.5 again. So that's my first kind of impression on this team. Yeah, let's just go down the list. Let's go DPS first. So Glister is obviously the talk of the town for the Paris Eternal. Pretty high profile pickup. Again, if you're a Paris fan, you can thank Jmac for that one. He really flexes friendship powers to get Glister over. And
Unnecessary.
beyond that, they've kept Naga, who was actually pretty breakout from last year in terms of we had a reasonable Echo meta. He was one of the only Western DPSs to seriously play Fire as well, which the Asian teams abused quite a lot, but the Western teams not quite so much. So Naga and Paris kind of carve their own niches and strength out based on his capability on these projectile heroes, which is pretty good. So if that happens again, it will be good. Now, I still don't know if their highs and their strengths are good enough to get them far enough, because to me, Naga would have to get another Echo meta, right? Surely he'd have to get another Echo or Fire meta. I don't know if there's other picks in there that he's going to be bringing to the table that are going to be good enough to compete, because you are going to have to go up against some nutty players, even in the middle of the table. You know, consider that I may be wrong. Sorry, Houston fans, but I have to say it. I have Houston in the middle of the pack. You got fucking Pelican on that team.
True.
I have New York in the middle of the pack. You got fucking Yaki on that team. So if Paris want to be fighting for middle of the table, which I think would be a W for that team, I think Paris should be happy. They'd be pleased to be middle of the table. You have to go up against some really good players in the middle of the table when you talk about names like Pelican and Yaki, right? Those are now guys on middle of the table teams. So Naga, good luck. Glister, ideally should be able to compete on that level, but I still don't know. Just looking at his hero pool here, I genuinely can't remember any of his Tracer performances. I don't know if that should worry me or not.
No, I think it does, if I'm going to be completely honest.
His Sombra was good. I think his Sombra last year was really good, but I can't even remember any games of him playing Tracer. That's probably on me. I'll admit it. You know, that's a lapse in my memory. Must have just gone into my memory black hole. I'm sorry, but it's not there.
I mean, even branching from that, like when you look at like the typical like traditional DPS lineups throughout Overwatch history, there are some that are going to require like a Tracer and a hit scan. Your Tracer player is Glister, more than likely. Naga thrives on those like hardcore projectile heroes, like you said, Echo, the Pharahs. Like, where's this hit scan coming in? Or is Naga going to be playing a Tracer against somebody like Sparkle or Striker? That's the concern.
Yeah. Boston could be a middle of the pack team. Yeah. Boston's going to be a rival team for Paris this year, and they got fucking Striker on that team. It's scary.
Yep. Yes, sir. It's not clear. It's not a clear cut like punch above their weight team. It does feel a little meta dependent. Like I think they have some like decent ceilings, like much in the same way that a New York or maybe even a Houston, given a perfect meta, can do some big things. And I do think Paris can do some big things. But things would look a whole lot cleaner if there was like a second like DPS to round out this team. I think they would genuinely like be a confident middle of the pack placement right now. Outside of that, as we look at it right now, Glister, Nagadan, Vastola, Dredro, Khan, it's tough, and I think a lot of that comes from the DPS.
Yiska. You like a bit of Glister, I know.
I like a bit of... Yeah. There is something to be said about players that you think are just going to be like transformational talents and then them never really arriving there. And like when Krusty picked up Glister, I was like, this is it, bro. This now it's like, and he wasn't bad. He still had a good season. He just didn't have a lip season. You know, he didn't have a flatter. He didn't have a leaf season. And of course, he doesn't.
To be fair, those are pretty hard to have.
Yeah, but I thought, like, when I saw him in contenders, I legitimately thought he could have that. I think he's a true hyperflex at heart, so I don't fear that this is going to be an issue from that regard. Like, if they have to play double projectile, I don't think that's a problem for Glister. But yeah, it is going to be. The problem is, like, at best, he's just going to have a very good performance on an underdog team. But, like, I don't know. Like, in my heart, I still feel like Glister should be the guy hosting the trophy with an MVP nomination, at least to his name, right? And that his career never went that way is sort of like...
Do you think he's got the Yaki-esque put the team in the backpack carry kind of level?
I mean,
because on a team like Paris, he might end up having to be that guy. But can he be that guy?
No, I don't think he can anymore.
Yeah, I don't think so either, just to be clear.
I think
which is scary, right?
I think he's very smart as a player. He's not beast. He's not someone that just goes, okay, I just refuse to lose here. Like, he's not... I don't know when and where it happened. His mechanics used to be otherworldly. His reaction time was nuts.
You know what it is? I think it's harder to be that 1v11. Well, now it's going to be 1v9. I think it's harder to be that 1v9 player on a hit scan role than it is on, unless you're Arns in 2020, than it is on a flex DPS role. That's why when you think about these insane like 1v9 performances, it's usually like the Yaki leave kind of guys who are on flex DPS on a tracer, most likely, who pull out these performances, or Proper in certain cases as well. Not that Proper's had too many weak supporting cast members, but you know, just saying he's the kind of player that can pull out the 1v9s.
Yeah.
I think Glister being on a hit scan and also not being, I mean, yeah, we are in a game that is just stacked with so many good hit scans. It's just like, if you were to rate Glister on a hit scan 1 through to 20 or maybe even more, bro, I don't even think he hits the top 10.
No.
You know what I mean? And that's why it's just like,
it's tough.
Yeah, I don't see it. You're an upgrade on Oni God, hypothetically, but not enough to push Paris even to the mid-table. This is a team that's trying to break the mid-table, and I don't even know if they can off of Glister. But he's the one that most likely can and is going to give them the power to do so, but it's looking rough.
Yeah.
And now this is where I buy into the notion of getting a third DPS more and more, because I'm like, fuck, maybe they do need a third DPS.
No, just enough to smooth it out.
I don't think Paris will get the go there. I think Paris are done. I think they're not going to buy another player. I think the budget limits them to only having 6. And if you're only going to have 6, I think you need 2 tanks, understandably.
Mm-hmm.
I would also bank on 2 tanks and not anything else. If I was only allowed 6 players, I'd get 2 tanks. So I get it. I do get it. Are we ready to talk about tanks? I think we are.
Yep.
Dan Vostola. Now, to be clear, the off-season strategy for the Paris Eternal was that they were actually in the market for another off-tank. We are aware publicly that Poco was given an offer. I believe it was a minimum offer. So he got the 50k, declined it, went to London, rejoined Christopher. So there was a world that maybe Poco could have been on this team. Poco didn't join. Vostola gets to rejoin instead and be reunited with Dan. Now, Vostola originally replaced Elevote on this team last year. And I think he ended up being good enough that he was kind of like almost an upgrade on Elevote in some ways. And Dan was one of the few tanks in the Western region that actually brought out a ball, looked reasonable on it.
Very flexible, weirdly enough.
And you know, Paris was almost like a scuffed Chengdu because they could play the fire, they could play the ball.
Yep.
Yeah, but obviously the skill gap there is maybe a little bit much, but there they had the capability, they had some extra flexibility that the rest of NA did not have. But are Dan and Vostola enough to push them to the mid-table? Joe?
The more I think about it, the more it is more difficult in the that mid-table talk for a lot of these teams is going to be like a dogfight. Like we are arguing like minor like quibbles here, quibbles there. Like we still don't even know what game we're playing, if I'm to be completely honest. Like
hopefully Overwatch 2.
Hope ideally it's not Snake, right? Like I look at Don and Vestola and I'm like, yes, you should be able to cover all your bases. This should be fine. Again, it comes down to caliber. Like, are you going to compete with, you know, Piggy on his best hero or Kellen on his best hero? Probably not. Let's be honest. Is that something we can count on all season? It kind of depends. It's like if New York and Houston are teams that like need big metas to like peak, Paris just needs to like just be like fine. Like they're rolling for metas that like they need to avoid, if that makes sense. Like they're just like gonna be like the fine. They almost feel in a way like a worse Boston, where they should be all right for the most part. They have some holes 100% when it comes to DPS. Like there are just certain like DPS meta games that they're just gonna be a little tragic on, if I'm gonna be completely honest. And some that they should be good, but like for the most part, like it feels like a safe team. I just don't see them like leaping off the page. And if there is a way for them to, it might just be that Don gets to like flex his tank pool around and do some weird stuff. And they kind of did that last year, but it also, I think, was a slight detriment because they never really looked good on any one thing. They could just like play the field and be okay at it. And it kind of comes down to like, can their peers do that? It depends. It's in a weird way, they are kind of meta dependent. They're kind of meta dependent on everybody else like shitting the bed and them kind of like being the last man of the battle royale, playing rat, you know, PUBG off in a bush somewhere with their level 3 helmet, their level 3 backpack, and their meds, you know, sitting in the zone, right? Like it feels like Paris has to outlast the rest of these teams that are going to be spiky.
Okay.
Does that come from the tanks though? I don't know. It's tough. He's here.
Yiska, you're same to you then. Are Dan and Vestola enough to push Paris into the mid-table?
It's hard, man.
It's a loaded question because I'm assuming they're going to be below mid-table. So I've loaded that a little bit. I apologize.
Right.
You feel free to unload that if you'd like. I'll just put that out there for you. But do what you want with that.
I think like lower mid-tier table, I feel pretty good about. Maybe 8th. I don't.
Oh, we're not getting to rankings yet. We just want to talk about the tanks for now.
Okay, in terms of tanks, yeah, it's going to be hard for sure. I think the fact that they do have 2 is kind of nice. It will really depend on the type of meta that you have to run, because like if there's frequent switches between like off and main tanks based on like on a singular map, then I don't trust either player to be capable of doing that to the level that someone like Kellen would be, right?
Sure.
Just by the nature of their skill level, or Kalush, or, you know, like even if we go outside the rookie sphere, like Hawk is more capable of that, and you know. So yeah, I'm a little concerned there, but maybe not overly so. I think they have some advantage over direct competitors for the likely slots they're going to come up with. Namely that they do have 2 tanks. But yeah, like, I mean, if you had to or outline like which line is the weakness in this team, then you would have to say tank, I think.
So here's some of their closest rivals. How would you compare Paris to the Boston tank line of Marvel It's All Punk, or maybe even the Florida tank line of Someone Adam? Those are probably two of Paris's rivals this year.
Yep.
Where do they land? Did Paris have a weaker tank line?
So, in terms of uprising, I'm questioning why you would even need a third tank. Well, this is sort of like a weird champ situation where this makes me skeptical.
Well, they have one, so is it better or worse? I don't know. Like, it just happens to be there. So.
Yeah, it could signal that you have some issues filling those gaps, right? But at the same time, it's 3 tanks. How bad can it be, right?
Yeah.
Well, they've definitely filled it. Yeah, mate, if you can't fill the gaps, 3 tanks, I don't know what the hell's going on. But
yeah,
that aside,
yeah, I think
do you trust the Boston tanks more? Or do you trust the Paris tanks more?
About the same, with maybe slight edge to Boston. And then I trust the Mayhem tanks more again than the Paris tanks.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm a little bit more bullish on Boston. I'm a little bit more questionable when it comes to Mayhem, just because like I've only heard good things. I haven't really seen them, so that's my bias, like my ignorance, where it's just like I've heard good things. I trust and believe that, and I've seen Don and Vestola's like fine. I think he's like going to do his job. I think he'll be all right. I can't remember like too many times last season where I was just like, oh my god, Vestola Pog. But like I can remember times where Don was genuinely pretty good, and I thought like he was like this like a standout main tank in like the bottom half of the league.
The reason why I ask is I'm just trying to gauge, is there a skill gap here between Paris and the rest of NA? And that could be in any role, but we're just talking about tanks right now. Is there a skill gap problem here, or maybe they're fine? And just remember the goal I'm outlining, and I'm loading this a little bit. I apologize, but a goal that I am outlining is that they are trying to break mid pack.
I don't think it's a problem. No, they're not far behind. I don't think so.
Yeah,
okay,
I think
let's go
close enough.
Let's talk about the support. I think I will say the supports are definitely one of the best parts about this roster, and
yep.
And can I say something really hot here? I think maybe the supports are the best part of the roster.
I think so.
I think I like Dredro Khan more than Dan Vostola, Naga, and Glister.
Yep.
Legitimately. I think the support line might actually be the best part of our roster. Real talk.
After talking through the DPS, yeah, I would agree.
Because when I look at this, I'm like, more flexible than Irish Lastro.
Yep.
Khan on his best day can definitely compete with those guys too.
Yep.
I might even like Dredro Khan more than Faith, Crimson, MCD, and there's 3 of them.
Yep.
I definitely like Dredro Khan more than the Vancouver supports, even though that's hard because Master's on there. I do like Master a lot, but fuck it, I think Dredro Khan were really good last year. Both of them were outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is like I was going to say, like maybe Glister doesn't have to be the carry, but then no, he does, because the carry from the support line is still hard to do.
Yeah,
it is still support at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I do think their support line is great. Generally speaking, I think if you're a Paris fan, you can be super proud of Dredro Khan. Really good stuff there. You're hoping for a standard conventional meta main support, flex support. I don't know what Dredro's flex support is like, but yeah. What are your guys' thoughts on that before we get into rankings?
I think this if we were playing support the game, right? Like I think Dredro Khan like genuinely like punches way above their weight, just like in a vacuum. Like I think like some of those mid pack teams that we're judging, like Boston, like Florida, like I think Dredro Khan are the favorites in those matchups. For me personally, I think Dredro throughout his career has been a playmaker on a role that like is difficult to playmake from. Has like a pedigree when it comes to like Mercy. I get it, like it's a meme. I get it. Reddit all stars, but it goes without saying, like it's not just the Mercy, it's the Lucio, it's the Brig. Like he can cover all of his bases and then some. Khan looked like maybe a rookie of the year candidate early on last year. Obviously that wasn't the case. I quite like the support line, and like I said, like the more that we kind of talk through that DPS lineup, the more I'm like, yeah, the supports are the beacon here that they're kind of gonna be banking on.
Yeah. Do you want me to range them?
Oh, you do whatever you want. How would you like to speak? You talk about Dredra Khan in whatever way you feel best. I'll give you that.
I think just Khan is very good. I'm not sure about Dredro. I think there's something to be said about Dredro sort of like shaping the way this team communicated last season and like how it got much better once he was introduced. Yeah, I think that's a really solid backline. Now, let's look at some. Like, I think that's a better backline than Gangnam Jin and Myambong.
Yep.
I think that's a better backline than Mayhem. I think that's a better backline than London.
Yep.
That's a better backline than Vancouver.
Yep.
For the majority of the season, it's probably better than Justice.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Reasonably, right? Am I forgetting any teams?
I'd put them above Boston personally.
Yeah, maybe. It depends.
I'm high on Faith, just like I'm high on Molly, but I don't know. I think the support backline for Paris
MCD kind of good.
A little differently.
He's kind of good, dude.
No, MCD kind of good, but Khan also kind of good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit closer, but I personally would put Paris above.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't hate that. So yeah, I mean that's by what we just outlined. That's solid mid tier in terms of the backline.
Yeah, easily.
That's the one part of the roster I'm confident is mid tier. So let's break it down now. Could this team be mid tier? Do you rate them as mid tier? What's your range here? I'll go first. I think my range for this team is probably around a 8 to 11. I don't see them being the bottom two. I'm willing to give Paris the benefit of the doubt that they're not going to be the bottom two. 8 to 11th, but I think they can go as high as 8. 7's getting tough because I think you're going to have to start beating. To get to 7th, you have to really get into that kind of NYXL tier. You have to start getting, you have to start moving around in the Toronto NYXL kind of level, and that's going to be rough, Say what you will about Toronto Defiant, or like, oh, what's the direction of this team? Bro, they don't need a direction if their play quality is just higher than Paris. So, and no amount you can be the Jmac could be the best coach, but my guy can't make you click heads better when dudes on Toronto can just do that. So I don't know. That's all I'm saying. That's my position for Paris right now, which I think is optimistic.
I'm kind of in a similar boat. I think I'm probably around like 8 to 10. I think they can like waffle slightly higher, but like if we're doing like season wide, like they probably settle around 8.
So you think there are definitely 3 teams that they're going to be 100% better than?
Definitely 100% better than London. I think then it's just this like messy gray area. I think it's tough. That's a tough one. Just feeling wise as it stands right now, I'd say 8 to 10 feels good for me.
Okay. So far, no one willing to go above 8, Yiska? What do you think?
I thought it would sound funny if I said 7-11, and I actually believe it.
I don't hate that.
I think they.
You think they maintain 7 though?
I mean, possible. I think that like.
So, I mean,
I like. I'm getting more and more spicy takes. I think like once we get to the power rankings, we're going to reevaluate some of the top teams.
Yes, we are.
And I think I wouldn't hate. I don't think it's impossible for them to finish higher than Justice, for instance.
So, just for context, to get 7th, they have to be better than 2 out of the 3 of Toronto, New York, Justice. 2 out of the 3. They have to be better than.
Yep.
to get to 7.
I think that's within the possibility, a range possibility, hence why 7th. 8th, yes, has a much higher probability of happening. But 7th is definitely possible in the striking range. Yeah.
And they have to be better than their rivals, Boston.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Which I would argue, outside the support line, Boston on paper probably stronger.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
With more flexibility.
Yeah.
So,
Boston's a tough ask. I think I
know Boston have shat the bed before when they lost to Vancouver last year. True, but Boston's highs are higher than Paris.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. I respect it. Hey, it's a hot take. I respect it. I respect the 7, but you would need a god season from Paris. I think a 7 would be an unreal season from Paris. That'd be like, bro, give whatever you're paying Jmac, pay him more kind of season. You know what I'm saying? Holy shit. Okay, well, I think Paris have something good to build on. Yeah, it's a tough ask because they have something good to build on from last year, but also I feel like their ceiling is not too high, but it is what it is. You know, Paris, they want to have a European team. They're showing a lot of loyalty to a lot of players. They have one upgraded position. They have the capability to impress. I don't think they're going to be a bottom feeder team, thankfully. I think the Paris fans can be comfortable in the fact that they're going to have a team that will take games, have legitimate upset potential, that you can't sleep on. You're definitely not winning a title. You'd be very happy to make it into the top 8. That's why I even said 8, because saying 8 means there is a world where Paris maybe squeaks into a tournament. Maybe. And you'd be super fucking happy with that. So
100%.
That's Paris Eternal. Hoping for the best. That's all of our NA previews done as well. Episode 224 wrapping up. Thank you so much for staying tuned with us for all these NA previews. Covered 13 damn teams. And now all we got left is to do the APAC teams. 7 of them. That'll be lots of fun. And after that, we'll be looking at power rankings and all the rest. So plenty to look forward to as we come into the start of the season, which will be happening really soon. So thank you guys. Thank you for being part of our episode, and we'll see you next time for 225. Peace out.